The suitcase slipped from Natasha's hand and hit the hardwood floor with a thud that echoed through the hallway. She stood frozen in the doorway of her guest bedroom, her mouth open but no sound coming out. The room that should have been empty was filled with someone else's life. A stranger's life. Makeup covered her grandmother's antique dresser. Expensive brands she'd never bought, in shades she'd never wear. A lacy pink robe hung on the back of the door. Heels she didn't recognize sat neatly by the closet, at least 6 pairs. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled, and a sweet floral perfume hung in the air, nothing like the subtle vanilla scent Natasha wore. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she took a step into the room. This wasn't a guest. This was someone living here. Her hands trembled as she opened the closet door. Dresses hung there, pressed and organized. Work clothes. Casual clothes. Going out clothes. A whole wardrobe. In her house. In the home her grandmother had left her, the one she'd grown up visiting every summer, the one filled with memories of baking cookies and learning to garden and feeling safe. Natasha's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her assistant. Hope you enjoyed your trip. See you Monday. The business trip. She'd only been gone 5 days. 5 days to finalize a major contract in Atlanta. 5 days that apparently gave her husband enough time to move another woman into their home. She backed out of the room slowly, as if sudden movements might make this real. Her mind raced through possibilities, excuses, rational explanations. Maybe it was his sister. But Derek's sister lived across the country and wore a size larger. Maybe it was a friend in crisis. But what friend? Derek barely maintained friendships. He'd always said he didn't need anyone but her. The sound of laughter floated up from downstairs. Female laughter. Light and carefree, mixing with Derek's deeper chuckle. Natasha's stomach turned. She pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. Part of her wanted to run downstairs and demand answers. Part of her wanted to run out of the house and never come back. But she did neither. Instead, she stood there listening to her husband laugh with another woman in the home she'd inherited, the home she'd welcomed him into when they married 3 years ago. She moved quietly to their bedroom. Her bedroom, she corrected herself mentally. Everything looked normal here. The bed was made the way she always made it. Her book still sat on the nightstand. The photo of their wedding day still hung on the wall, though now it made her sick to look at. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. The guest room. The clothes. The makeup. Everything. Her hands were steadier now. Shock was giving way to something else. Something cold and clear. Natasha heard footsteps on the stairs. She quickly closed her bedroom door and pressed her ear against it. I should check if Natasha texted, Derek's voice said. Her flight should have landed hours ago. You're so considerate. The woman's voice was young, maybe mid-20s. That's what I love about you. Natasha's jaw clenched. Well, this woman loved her husband. And from the sound of it, Derek didn't discourage it. I'll call her later, Derek said. Come on, the movie's starting. Their footsteps retreated downstairs. Natasha sat on the edge of her bed, her mind spinning. She'd been married to Derek for 3 years, together for 5. She'd supported him through his career changes, through his mother's illness, through his crisis about turning 40. She'd been a good wife, a faithful wife. She trusted him completely. And this was how he repaid her. She pulled up her contacts and found Zara's number. Her best friend since college, the one person she could count on. The phone rang twice before Zara answered. Hey girl. How was Atlanta? Zara. Natasha's voice came out as a whisper. I need you to come over. But don't ring the doorbell. Text me when you're outside. Natasha? What's wrong? Just come. Please. 20 minutes later, Natasha's phone buzzed. She grabbed the small bag she'd packed with important documents. Her passport, birth certificate, grandmother's will, bank statements, and crept downstairs. Derek and his guest were in the living room, absorbed in whatever movie they were watching. She could see the back of Derek's head on the couch. Next to him sat a young woman with long auburn hair. Natasha slipped out the front door without making a sound. Zara stood by her car, eyes wide. What? Drive? Natasha said. I'll explain everything. As they pulled away from the house, Natasha looked back at the home she'd loved, the place that held her happiest childhood memories. The porch light glowed warm and welcoming, just like it had when her grandmother was alive. But nothing about that house felt warm anymore. Derek moved another woman into our house, she said flatly. Her stuff is everywhere. They're watching movies together right now like it's the most natural thing in the world. Zara's hands tightened on the steering wheel. That son of a... Don't, Natasha interrupted. I need to think clearly. I need to figure out what to do. But even as she said it, a plan was already forming in her mind. Derek thought she was soft. He thought she'd cry and forgive him like she'd forgiven smaller things before. He thought that house was his home too, that he had every right to invite whoever he wanted into it. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Natasha sat in Zara's apartment until midnight, drinking coffee and making lists. Lists of assets, lists of accounts, lists of everything she owned and everything Derek might try to claim. The anger had settled into something more useful now: determination. You need to confront him, Zara said, pacing the small living room. You need to kick them both out tonight. No. Natasha's voice was calm. I need information first. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. She returned home at 1 in the morning. The house was dark except for the porch light. She let herself in quietly and climbed the stairs. The guest bedroom door was closed. She pressed her ear against it and heard nothing. Asleep, probably. In her house. In her guest bed. Natasha went to her own bedroom and lay down fully clothed on top of the covers. She didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling and planned. When dawn broke, she heard Derek's alarm go off. She listened to him shuffle to the bathroom, heard the shower run. Normal morning routine. Like nothing was wrong. Like he hadn't betrayed everything they'd built together. She got up and went downstairs, putting coffee on. When Derek came down, he actually smiled at her. Hey babe, when did you get in? I tried calling you last night. Natasha turned slowly to face him. Did you? Something in her tone made him pause. Yeah, around 10. Your flight landed at 6, right? It did. So where were you? Derek. She set her coffee mug down carefully. Who's sleeping in our guest room? His face went pale, then red. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I can explain. I'm listening. It's Amber. From my office. She was having trouble with her roommate and needed a place to stay for a few days. I told her she could use the guest room until she figures things out. Natasha laughed. It was a harsh sound, foreign to her own ears. You moved another woman into our home without asking me. It's not like that. What's it like, Derek? Explain it to me. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she'd once found endearing. Now it just looked pathetic. You're overreacting. It's just temporary. She's a coworker who needed help. How long has she been here? He hesitated. About a week. A week. You moved her in the day after I left for Atlanta. It was an emergency. Did you sleep with her? The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Derek, did you sleep with her? We're not, it's complicated. Natasha nodded slowly. So that's a yes. Natasha, listen. No, you listen. Her voice was steel. This house belonged to my grandmother. She left it to me. My name is on the deed, not yours. And you brought your mistress here to live with us like I'm supposed to just accept it? Don't call her that. What should I call her? Your guest? Your coworker in crisis. Natasha stepped closer. Get her out of my house today. Derek's face hardened. I can't do that. Excuse me? She has nowhere else to go. And honestly, Natasha, maybe this is for the best. We need to talk about our marriage. Our marriage. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. You cheat on me, move your mistress into our home, and now you want to talk about our marriage? I'm not happy. He said it like it was her fault. You're always working, always busy with your career. When's the last time we really connected? So you found someone who pays attention to you. How original. Don't be like that. How should I be, Derek? Grateful? Understanding? Footsteps on the stairs interrupted them. A young woman appeared in the doorway, wearing one of Derek's t-shirts and looking nervous. She was pretty in an obvious way, long hair, big eyes, carefully maintained appearance. She couldn't have been more than 25. Good morning, Amber said quietly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Natasha stared at her. Did he tell you this is my house? Amber glanced at Derek. He said it was your house together. It's not. My grandmother left it to me. I own it. Alone. Oh. Amber shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know. Clearly there's a lot you don't know. Natasha turned back to Derek. I'm giving you both 24 hours to figure out what you're doing. But understand this, I'm done. Our marriage is over. You don't mean that, Derek said. Watch me. She walked out of the kitchen, grabbed her purse, and left the house again. Her hands shook as she drove, but not from fear. From rage. From the sheer audacity of it all. Derek actually thought he could move his mistress in and Natasha would just deal with it. He thought she'd be understanding, maybe even share him. She pulled into the parking lot of her office building even though it was Saturday. She sat in her car and pulled up her contacts. She needed a divorce attorney. She needed a real estate agent. And she needed to move fast. By noon, she had appointments scheduled for Monday morning. By evening, she had copies of all their financial records downloaded to a secure drive. By Sunday night, she had a storage unit rented and had quietly moved some of her most precious belongings there. Her grandmother's jewelry, photo albums, important papers. Derek and Amber stayed at the house all weekend. Natasha checked into a hotel. She needed space to think, to plan. She wasn't going to act out of anger. She was going to act out of strategy. Monday morning, she met with Jennifer Torres, a divorce attorney Zara had recommended. Jennifer was sharp, no nonsense, and understood immediately what Natasha needed. The house is solely in your name? Jennifer confirmed. Yes. I inherited it. And he moved his mistress in without your permission? Correct. Jennifer smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. He made this easy for you. We'll file for divorce based on adultery. And since the house is yours alone, you can do whatever you want with it. Can I sell it? It's your property. You can sell it, rent it, burn it down for all the law cares. Though I'd recommend selling. Natasha sat back in her chair. An idea was forming. A beautiful, perfect idea. How quickly could a house sale close in this market? With a cash buyer? 2 weeks, maybe less. Why? Natasha smiled for the first time in days. I want to sell the house. Fast. While Derek's still living in it. Jennifer's eyes lit up. I love the way you think. Natasha returned to the house Monday evening after her meetings. Derek was in the living room, Amber beside him on the couch. They looked up when she walked in, and Natasha saw guilt flash across Derek's face before he masked it with defiance. We need to talk, he said. No, we don't. Natasha set her bag down. I've consulted with an attorney. You'll be receiving divorce papers soon. Amber's eyes widened. Derek stood up. Natasha, come on. Don't be hasty. Hasty? She almost laughed. You moved your mistress into my house. I think I'm being remarkably calm. If you'd just listen. I'm done listening, Derek. I've spent 3 years listening to you. Your problems, your needs, your feelings. Where did it get me? She walked upstairs before he could respond. In her bedroom, she locked the door and sat on her bed, pulling out her phone. She had 3 real estate agents to interview tomorrow. She'd already researched the property value. The house was worth significantly more than when her grandmother had left it to her. The neighborhood had developed, become trendy. She could sell it quickly if she priced it right. Over the next few days, Natasha maintained an eerie calm. She went to work, came home, avoided Derek and Amber as much as possible. When she had to see them, she was polite but distant. Derek seemed confused by her composure. He'd probably expected tears, arguments, drama. Instead, he got nothing. On Wednesday, she met with a real estate agent named Patricia Hughes. Patricia was experienced, professional, and understood Natasha's unique situation. You want to sell without the occupants knowing? Patricia clarified. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, doesn't own any part of this property. It's solely mine. I want to sell it quickly and quietly. Patricia nodded. I have a client who's been looking for a property exactly like this. A developer. He pays cash and can close in 2 weeks. But the price will be below market value. How much below? Patricia named a figure. It was less than Natasha could get if she waited and listed properly, but it was still a substantial amount. Enough to set her up beautifully in a new place with money left over. Do it, Natasha said. You're sure? Completely. That evening, she started apartment hunting. She found a beautiful 1-bedroom downtown, all windows and light with a view of the city. It was the opposite of her grandmother's house. Modern where that was traditional, minimalist where that was full of history. Perfect for a new start. She signed the lease on Friday. Derek noticed her good mood at dinner. She'd actually cooked, something she hadn't done since coming home from Atlanta. Amber helped set the table, playing house in Natasha's home. You seem better, Derek said carefully. I am better. Natasha smiled. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us. About my future. Derek looked relieved. So you're open to working things out? Natasha almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I'm open to moving forward, yes. He interpreted that how he wanted to. She could see it in his face. He thought she was coming around, that she'd accept his affair, that maybe they could all figure out some arrangement. Men like Derek always thought women would accept less than they deserved. The closing was scheduled for the following Friday. Natasha had 2 weeks to prepare. She worked methodically like she was planning a business merger instead of dismantling her life. She opened a new bank account at a different bank. She transferred her portion of their joint savings, exactly half, so he couldn't accuse her of stealing. She changed her direct deposit at work. She set up mail forwarding to a P.O. box. Every day she moved small amounts of her belongings to the storage unit. Photos, books, her grandmother's china. Things Derek wouldn't notice missing. Zara helped, making trips during the day while Derek and Amber were at work. "I can't believe how calm you are," Zara said, loading boxes into her car. "I'm not calm. I'm focused." "Same thing with you." Natasha smiled. "Maybe." She kept a countdown in her phone. 12 days until closing. 10 days. 8 days. Each day that passed felt like a small victory. Derek remained oblivious, acting like everything was going back to normal. Amber became bolder, rearranging things in the kitchen, offering opinions on what they should have for dinner, acting like she belonged there. 1 week before closing, Natasha had her final meeting with Jennifer. "Everything's in order," Jennifer said. "The divorce papers will be served on Monday, after the house closes." Perfect timing. "Natasha, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Selling the house out from under him is legal, but it's going to cause a lot of chaos." "Good." Jennifer studied her. "He really hurt you. He betrayed me in the worst possible way. In my grandmother's house. The one place that was supposed to be safe and mine. Then he deserves what's coming." The weekend before closing, Natasha took Derek's car to be serviced as a nice gesture. While it was in the shop, she had his spare key made. She'd need it for later. She spent that Sunday at her new apartment, measuring for furniture, planning the layout. It felt good to imagine a space that was entirely hers, with no history of Derek in it. She bought new sheets, new towels, new everything. She wanted nothing from the old house except what belonged to her alone. Monday came. 4 more days. Tuesday. 3 days. Wednesday. 2 days. Thursday night, Natasha barely slept. Tomorrow everything would change. She'd already moved everything essential. All that remained was her clothes and a few items she'd pack in the morning. Derek and Amber went to bed around 11. Natasha waited until she heard them settle, then got up and did a final walkthrough of the house. Her grandmother's presence was everywhere, in the curved banister she'd slid down as a child, in the kitchen where they'd baked together, in the garden visible through the back windows. "I'm sorry, Grandma," she whispered, "but I can't stay here anymore. Not after what he did." She imagined her grandmother would understand. She'd been a strong woman, one who'd divorced Natasha's grandfather back in the 1970s when it was still scandalous. She'd always told Natasha to stand up for herself, to never let anyone diminish her worth. "Well, Grandma," Natasha thought, "watch me stand up for myself now." She went back to her room and set her alarm for 5 a.m. In the morning the house would close. And Derek's world would fall apart. Natasha's alarm went off at 5 a.m. sharp. She silenced it immediately and lay still, listening. The house was quiet. Derek and Amber were still asleep down the hall. They'd moved into the guest room together days ago, not even trying to hide their relationship anymore. She got up silently and changed into jeans and a comfortable shirt. No need to dress up today. She had work to do. Her laptop sat on her desk, already logged into the closing platform. Everything was digital now, thank God. No need to meet in person, no need to explain to Derek where she was going or why. The title company had sent her all the documents days ago. She'd reviewed them 3 times with Jennifer, making sure everything was perfect. At exactly 6 a.m., she opened her laptop and began signing. Click initial, click sign, click confirm. It took 15 minutes to complete every form. When she signed the final page authorizing the transfer of funds and the deed, she felt a weight lift from her chest. The house was sold. She refreshed her bank account. The funds from the sale appeared, minus the agent's commission and closing costs. It was more money than she'd ever had at once. More importantly, it was hers. Derek had no claim to it, no right to it, no access to it. Natasha closed her laptop and looked around her bedroom. Time to finish packing. She'd already moved most of her important items, but she still had clothes, shoes, her laptop, and a few personal items. She worked quickly, stuffing everything into suitcases and bags. She didn't bother being neat. She just needed to get everything out. By 7 a.m. she was done. 6 bags and suitcases sat by her bedroom door. She made one final sweep of the room, checking drawers and the closet. Nothing left that mattered. She could buy new things. She couldn't buy back her dignity if she stayed. She heard movement down the hall. Derek's alarm. He'd be up soon, stumbling to the shower, starting his day like nothing was wrong. Like he hadn't destroyed their marriage and disrespected her home. Natasha pulled out the envelope she'd prepared. Inside were the divorce papers Jennifer had drawn up, along with a letter she'd written last night. She read it one more time. Derek, this house has been sold. The new owners take possession at noon today. You have until then to remove yourself and your belongings. Amber needs to leave as well. Divorce papers are included. Sign them. My attorney will be in touch. Don't contact me. Don't come to my office. Don't try to explain or apologize. There's nothing left to say. The house belonged to my grandmother and she left it to me. You never had any claim to it. You thought you could move your mistress in and I'd just accept it. You were wrong. Natasha. She sealed the envelope and carried it downstairs along with her first load of bags. She made 3 trips to her car, loading everything carefully. The sun was rising, casting pink light across the lawn her grandmother had loved. Natasha felt a pang of sadness. She'd missed this house, missed the memories it held. But those memories were already tainted. Derek had made sure of that. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, the real estate agent. Closing complete. Congratulations. New owners will arrive at noon with moving crew. Do you need anything else? Natasha typed back, no. Thank you for everything. She placed the envelope on the kitchen counter, propped against the coffee maker where Derek couldn't miss it. Then she walked through the house one last time. The living room where she'd curled up reading on winter afternoons. The dining room where she'd hosted friends. The garden where she'd planted roses last spring. All of it was someone else's now. She didn't cry. She'd cried enough over Derek. This was about moving forward. At 8 a.m. she pulled out of the driveway for the last time. She didn't look back. She drove straight to her new apartment. Zara was already there, waiting with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. You did it, Zara said, pulling her into a hug. I did it. How do you feel? Natasha thought about it. Free. They spent the morning unloading Natasha's car and arranging furniture. The apartment was small compared to the house, but it was hers. Every piece of furniture she'd bought herself. Every decoration she'd chosen. No compromises, no negotiations, no Derek's opinion mattering more than hers. At noon her phone rang. Derek. She silenced it. He called again. And again. She blocked his number. Then Amber called. Blocked. Then Derek called from an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. Natasha, what the hell is going on? There are people here saying they own the house. They have police with them. They're telling me I have to leave. Call me back right now. She deleted the voicemail. Zara watched, her eyebrows raised. Cold? He deserves it. Another call from a different unknown number. Another voicemail. Derek's voice was panicked now. Natasha, please? I don't understand what's happening. Did you really sell the house? Where am I supposed to go? We need to talk about this. You can't just... The message cut off. Natasha made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, looking out at the city skyline. This was her new view. Her new life. Derek and Amber could figure out their own housing situation. It wasn't her problem anymore. Her phone buzzed with texts from unknown numbers. Derek was desperate now, borrowing phones to contact her. She blocked each one without reading the messages. Finally, Jennifer called. I'm getting calls from Derek's attorney. Apparently he just hired one. They're threatening legal action. On what grounds? They're claiming you had no right to sell the marital home. But it wasn't a marital home. It was my property, inherited before the marriage. Exactly what I told them. They have no case. They're just grasping at straws. So I don't need to worry? Not at all. You did everything legally. The house was yours to sell. Derek's just upset that he got outplayed. Natasha smiled. Good. Over the next few days, Derek's attempts to reach her became more frantic. He showed up at her office, but security turned him away. He tried contacting her through colleagues, but she'd warned everyone not to pass along messages. He even tried reaching out to her mother, who told him exactly what she thought of him before hanging up. Natasha didn't engage. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. She simply moved on. She bought new clothes for her new life. She got a fresh haircut, shorter and more modern than she'd worn it before. She joined a gym near her apartment. She signed up for a pottery class on Tuesday evenings. She did all the things she'd always wanted to do but hadn't because Derek found them boring or unnecessary. 1 week after the sale, she met with Jennifer to review the divorce proceedings. "He's fighting it," Jennifer said. "He wants half of the proceeds from the house sale." "On what grounds?" "He claims he contributed to the upkeep and maintenance, therefore he deserves compensation. He lived there rent-free for 3 years. That's what I told his attorney. We'll see if they want to take this to court. Honestly, I think they know they'll lose. They're hoping you'll settle to avoid the hassle." "I won't settle." "I figured. Just wanted you to know what you're up against." Natasha nodded. "Whatever it takes. I'm not giving him anything." She meant it. Derek had taken enough from her. Her trust, her sense of safety, her grandmother's home. He wouldn't get her money too. That evening, she sat in her apartment with a glass of wine and looked at her calendar. Tomorrow she had a meeting with a potential new client, a big account that could really boost her career. Next week she was flying to Chicago for a conference. In 2 weeks, she and Zara were taking a girls' trip to Mexico. Her life was fuller now than it had been in years. Freer. Lighter. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, can we talk? I have nowhere to go. Amber left me. Everything fell apart. Please, Natasha." She read it twice, then deleted it and blocked the number. Derek's problems weren't hers to solve anymore. He'd made his choices. Now he could live with the consequences. The morning of the closing, Natasha had woken up with absolute clarity. Everything she'd planned for the past 2 weeks was about to unfold. As she signed the final documents transferring ownership of her grandmother's house, she felt powerful in a way she'd never experienced before. This wasn't revenge out of spite. This was reclaiming her life. After loading her car with the last of her belongings, she'd driven to her new apartment, where Zara helped her unpack. They worked in comfortable silence, occasionally laughing at Derek's increasingly desperate voicemails that Natasha played on speaker. "You have to leave immediately. The police are here. These people say they own the house." "Natasha, answer your phone." Zara shook her head. The audacity of him to sound upset. "Right? Like I'm supposed to feel bad for him." By early afternoon, the voicemails had changed tone. Derek was no longer angry, he was begging. "Please, I don't have anywhere to go. Amber's blaming me for everything. Her stuff is all over the lawn because I threw it out. I'm staying at a motel right now. Please call me back." Natasha set her phone down and continued unpacking her books. She arranged them on the built-in shelves in the living room, novels she'd bought but never read because Derek thought reading was a waste of time, poetry collections she'd hidden because he'd mocked them, self-help books about building confidence and setting boundaries. "You're really not going to respond to him at all?" Zara asked. "What would I say? Sorry you're experiencing the consequences of your own actions." Fair point. That evening, Natasha took a long bath in her new bathroom. The tub was smaller than the one at the house, but it was hers alone. No sharing space, no compromising on bath products, no Derek knocking on the door asking when she'd be done because he needed to shower. She soaked until the water went cold, then put on comfortable pajamas and made herself dinner. Real dinner, salmon with roasted vegetables, food she actually enjoyed instead of the heavy, bland meals Derek had preferred. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, watching the city lights come on outside her window. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Amber's number. "You're a heartless woman. Derek told me everything. You sold his house out from under him? What kind of person does that? I hope you're happy ruining people's lives." Natasha read it and laughed out loud. The audacity. She typed back, "It was my house. And you're a homewrecker. Don't contact me again." She blocked Amber's number before there could be a response. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Natasha threw herself into work, determined to prove that Derek's betrayal hadn't broken her. If anything, it had freed her to focus on her career without guilt about not spending enough time at home. She landed the new client she'd been pursuing, a major account that would significantly boost her commission. Her boss pulled her aside to congratulate her and hint at a possible promotion. "You've been on fire lately," he said. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up." If he only knew that what she was doing was divorcing a cheating husband and starting over from scratch. But Natasha just smiled and thanked him. A week after the closing, she got a call from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Natasha, it's me." Derek's voice was hoarse. "Please don't hang up." She should have. But curiosity kept her on the line. "What do you want?" I need to understand. How could you do this to me? How could I do this to you?" Her voice was cold. "Derek, you moved your mistress into my house. You betrayed our marriage. You acted like I should just accept it. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices. Now you're dealing with the consequences. But selling the house. That's my home too. No, it wasn't. It was never your home. It was my grandmother's house that she left to me. You were a guest there. And you disrespected it. I have nowhere to go. I'm staying in a motel. I can barely afford it. That's not my problem. Natasha, please. She hung up. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear or doubt. From anger that he still didn't get it. He still thought she was the one being unreasonable. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the phone call, getting angrier each time. At 2 a.m., she got up and wrote in her journal, something her therapist had suggested. She filled pages with her feelings, her anger, her hurt, her relief. By the time she finished, the sun was rising and she felt calmer. Jennifer called that afternoon with an update. Derek's attorney is pushing hard for a settlement. They want 40% of the house sale proceeds. 40%? That's insane. I agree. I told them 15% at most, and that's being generous. Really, he's entitled to nothing. So what happens now? We wait for their response. If they push back, we go to court. But I don't think they want that. Your case is ironclad. How long will this take? The divorce? With contested finances could be 6 months. But I'll push to expedite it. 6 months. Half a year of being legally tied to Derek. It felt like forever, but Natasha knew she could handle it. She'd handled everything else. 2 weeks after the closing, Natasha had her first real moment of doubt. She was walking downtown when she saw Derek. He was coming out of a budget store, carrying bags that looked like they contained cheap clothes and household items. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled, defeated. He saw her at the same moment. For a second, they just stared at each other across the busy sidewalk. Then Derek crossed the street toward her. Natasha stood her ground, refusing to retreat. You look good, he said when he reached her. New haircut. Derek. I'm staying with a friend right now. His couch. It's not great, but it's better than the motel. I didn't ask. Right. Of course. He shifted his bags. I just wanted to say, I get it now. What I did to you. Moving Amber, and that was wrong. I was selfish. I wasn't thinking about your feelings. No, you weren't. Is there any chance, any at all, that we could talk? Really talk? Maybe over coffee? Natasha looked at him. This man she'd loved, this man she'd built a life with, this man who'd thrown it all away. And she felt nothing. No love, no hate, no anger. Just emptiness where he used to be. No, Derek. There's nothing to talk about. Sign the divorce papers. Move on with your life. That's all I want from you. Natasha. Goodbye, Derek. She walked away without looking back. Her heart was pounding, but she felt strong. She'd faced him and hadn't wavered. That evening she called Zara. I saw Derek today. Oh no. Are you okay? Actually, I am. I realized something. I don't hate him anymore. I don't feel anything for him. He's just someone I used to know. That's huge. I know. It feels like I'm really moving on, not just pretending to. You're moving on. Look at everything you've accomplished in just a few weeks. Natasha smiled. Zara was right. She had a new home, a thriving career, friends she was reconnecting with, hobbies she was exploring. Derek was becoming smaller in her rearview mirror, less significant with each passing day. 3 weeks after selling the house, Natasha received an email from Patricia, the real estate agent. The subject line read, "Thought you'd want to see this." She opened it to find photos of her grandmother's house completely renovated. The new owners had modernized it while keeping its charm. Updated kitchen, refinished floors, fresh paint. It looked beautiful, like it had been given new life. Natasha stared at the photos for a long time. She felt a pang of something, not quite regret but nostalgia maybe. That house held so many good memories. But Derek had tainted them, and now those memories belonged to her past, not her future. She replied to Patricia, "It looks wonderful. I'm glad it went to people who appreciate it." That same week, Jennifer called with news. Derek's caving. His attorney knows they have no case, so they're willing to settle for 10% of the sale proceeds in exchange for signing the divorce papers immediately. 10%. It's something. And it gets you divorced faster. But it's your call. We can fight for 0 if you want. Natasha thought about it. 10% was still a significant amount of money to give Derek, someone who deserved nothing. But the alternative was months more of being legally tied to him, more lawyers' fees, more stress. Will he sign immediately? As soon as the check clears, yes. Then do it. I want this over with. Smart choice. I'll draw up the settlement agreement. Natasha hung up and sat back in her desk chair. She was at work in her office with a view of the city. This job that Derek had sometimes resented because it took her attention away from him. This career she'd built despite his subtle undermining. Her assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Robertson is here for your 3 o'clock meeting. Send him in. The meeting went well. Mr. Robertson was impressed with her presentation and agreed to sign on for another year. Natasha shook his hand and walked him out, feeling proud. She was good at her job. She was successful. And she'd done it all herself. That evening she went to her first pottery class. She'd always wanted to try it, but Derek had called it a waste of money. The class was held in a bright studio downtown, filled with people of all ages. The instructor, a woman in her 60s with clay-stained hands and a warm smile, welcomed everyone. Pottery is about patience, she said. You can't rush the clay. You have to work with it, understand it, respect it. Natasha found the process meditative. Her first attempts were clumsy, the clay collapsing or going off-center. But she kept trying, kept adjusting, kept learning. By the end of the class, she'd made a small, wonky bowl. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Good first effort, the instructor said, examining it. You've got potential. See you next week? Definitely. As Natasha walked home, her apartment was only a few blocks from the studio. She felt lighter than she had in years. She was building a life she actually wanted to live, not one shaped by someone else's expectations. Her phone buzzed with a text from Derek's attorney. Settlement papers signed. Check will be sent within 3 business days. Divorce will be final 30 days after filing. She read it twice, then typed back, thank you. It was really over. In 30 days she'd be legally free. The thought made her smile. The next morning she went for a run along the river. She'd never been much of a runner, but lately she'd been pushing herself to try new things. The early morning air was cool, the sun just rising over the water. Other runners passed her, some offering friendly nods. At the halfway point, she stopped to catch her breath and looked out at the water. The city was waking up. Boats starting their engines, birds calling, traffic building on the nearby bridge. Everything was moving forward, including her. When she got back to her apartment, sweaty and energized, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Her heartbeat quickened. Had Derek found her address? But when she opened it, she found an invitation from her neighbor across the hall. Building potluck this Saturday at 6 p.m. Please join us. Apartment 5C. Natasha smiled. She'd barely interacted with her neighbors, too wrapped up in her own situation. Maybe it was time to change that. Saturday came and she showed up at the potluck with a homemade pasta salad. The apartment was packed with people. Young professionals, a retired couple, a single mom with 2 kids, a grad student. Everyone was friendly, curious about the new resident. What brought you to the building? Someone asked. I just got divorced, Natasha said. It was the first time she'd said it out loud to strangers. Wanted a fresh start. Good for you, the neighbor said. Here's to new beginnings. They toasted with cheap wine in plastic cups, and Natasha felt welcomed in a way she hadn't expected. These people didn't know about Derek or Amber or the house she'd sold. They only knew her as Natasha, the woman in 4B who seemed friendly and brought good pasta salad. That night, lying in bed, Natasha realized she'd laughed more at the potluck than she had in months of marriage. Real laughter, not polite laughter or forced laughter. The kind that made your stomach hurt and your face ache. Derek texted the next day from a new number. Got the settlement check. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say thank you. And I'm sorry. For all of it. Natasha stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to ignore it. Part of her wanted to send back an angry response about how sorry wasn't enough. But instead she typed, okay. Take care of yourself. Then she blocked the number. A week later she got another update from Jennifer. Divorce is final. Congratulations. You're officially a free woman. Natasha read the email 3 times. Free. She was free. She took herself out to dinner that night, a fancy restaurant she'd always wanted to try but Derek had thought was too expensive. She ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, drank wine from a region she couldn't pronounce, and ate slowly, savoring every bite. Celebrating something? The waiter asked when he brought dessert she hadn't ordered. My divorce was finalized today. He grinned. Then this is on the house. Congratulations. The dessert was chocolate cake with raspberry sauce, rich and decadent. Natasha ate every bite. When she got home, she stood in her apartment and looked around. It wasn't much. One bedroom, small kitchen, compact living room. But every inch of it was hers. No compromises, no negotiations, no one telling her that her taste was wrong or her choices were impractical. She pulled out her journal and wrote, "Today I became legally free from Derek. But I've been free for weeks now. Really free. The divorce papers are just the final confirmation of what I already knew. I'm better off without him. I'm better off on my own. And I'm going to build an amazing life." She closed the journal and smiled. The aftermath of Derek's betrayal had been painful, but she'd survived it. More than survived, she'd thrived. And this was only the beginning. Natasha threw herself into rebuilding her life with the same focus she'd brought to her career. It had been 2 months since selling the house, 1 month since the divorce was finalized, and she was determined to create something beautiful from the wreckage of her marriage. She started with her living space. The apartment that had felt temporary at first now became her sanctuary. She painted the bedroom a soft sage green, hung artwork she'd collected over the years, but Derek had never liked and bought plants, lots of plants. Her grandmother had loved gardening, and now Natasha understood why. There was something healing about nurturing living things, watching them grow. Her career continued to flourish. The promotion her boss had hinted at became official. She was now senior account manager with a salary increase and a small team reporting to her. The extra money meant she could save more aggressively, invest, plan for a future that was entirely her own design. "You're absolutely glowing," her colleague Monica said one day at lunch. "I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up." "I left my husband," Natasha said simply. "Turns out that was the self-care I needed." Monica laughed, but her eyes were sympathetic. "I heard rumors about him and someone from his office. He moved her into our house while I was on a business trip." "Jesus. I'm sorry." "Don't be." "I'm not." And it was true. Natasha had moved beyond the pain into something stronger. Confidence, self-assurance, the knowledge that she could handle anything life threw at her. She'd also started therapy, something she'd resisted before because Derek had mocked it. "Only weak people need therapy," he'd said once. Now she understood he'd been wrong. Therapy wasn't weakness, it was strength. It was choosing to process pain instead of burying it. Her therapist, Dr. Harrison, was a woman in her 50s who asked hard questions and didn't accept easy answers. "How do you feel about Derek now?" she asked during their 6th session. "Indifferent, mostly. Sometimes annoyed that I wasted 3 years on him." "Do you think they were wasted?" Natasha considered this. "No. I learned what I don't want. What I won't accept. That's valuable." "What won't you accept?" "Disrespect. Betrayal. Someone who makes me smaller to make themselves feel bigger." She paused. "Derek always needed to be the center of attention. If I had success at work, he'd find a way to diminish it. If I was excited about something, he'd point out the flaws. I thought that was normal for a long time. And now I know I deserve better. Even if that means being alone." "Are you happy alone?" Natasha thought about her life, her apartment, her job, her pottery class, the book club she'd joined, the morning runs that had become a habit. "Yes, I really am." That weekend, she went on a trip with Zara to Mexico. They stayed in a beachfront hotel, spent their days reading by the pool, and their nights exploring local restaurants. It was exactly what Natasha needed: sun, relaxation, and her best friend's company. "Have you thought about dating again?" Zara asked one evening over margaritas. "Not really. I'm enjoying being on my own." "That's healthy. But eventually maybe. But not yet. I need to remember who I am without a man defining me." "That's very evolved of you." Natasha laughed. "I'm trying." On their last night in Mexico, they went dancing at a club near the beach. Natasha hadn't danced in years. Derek had always refused, saying he looked stupid, and she'd forgotten how much she loved it. The music was loud, the crowd was energetic, and for a few hours she lost herself in the rhythm and the movement. A man approached her, handsome and confident. "Can I buy you a drink?" She smiled politely. "Thank you, but I'm good." "Dance with me then?" "I'm dancing with my friend." "But have a great night." He accepted the rejection gracefully and moved on. Zara raised her eyebrows. "He was cute." "He was. But I'm not interested." "Fair enough." When they flew home, Natasha felt refreshed in a way she hadn't in years. The trip had reminded her that the world was bigger than her problems, that there were adventures waiting if she was brave enough to take them. Back home, she dove into a new project at work, launching a marketing campaign for a major client. The project was challenging, requiring long hours and creative thinking. But Natasha thrived under pressure. She built a presentation that wowed the client, collaborated with her team effectively, and delivered results ahead of schedule. Her boss pulled her aside after the client meeting. That was impressive. You've really stepped up lately. Thank you. I'm enjoying the challenge. How would you feel about leading the new business development team? It's a VP position. Significant pay increase, company car, better benefits. Natasha's heart raced. This was the kind of opportunity she dreamed about. I'd love to be considered. You're my top choice. We'll make it official next month after the board meeting. Walking out of his office, Natasha felt like she was floating. A VP position. She'd worked so hard for this, sacrificed so much. And it was finally paying off. That evening, she treated herself to takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant and called her mother. "How are you, sweetie?" her mother asked. Her parents had been supportive through the divorce, though her father had offered several times to have a talk with Derek. "I'm good, Mom. Really good. I think I'm getting a promotion." "That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks. I'm proud of me too. You should be. You handled everything with Derek with such grace." "I don't know about grace. I sold his house out from under him." Her mother laughed. "He deserved it. Your grandmother would have been proud." That night, Natasha looked at photos of her grandmother. She'd been a formidable woman, divorced in an era when that was scandalous, raised 2 children alone, built a successful business, bought the house that had eventually become Natasha's. She'd lived life on her own terms. "I'm trying to be like you, Grandma," Natasha whispered to the photo. "I'm trying to be strong." 3 months after the divorce, Natasha's life had transformed completely. She had a career that fulfilled her, friends she saw regularly, hobbies she enjoyed, and a sense of peace she'd never experienced with Derek. She ran into Amber unexpectedly at the grocery store. Amber looked haggard, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing sweats. She froze when she saw Natasha. "Hi," Amber said quietly. "Amber, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. I was young and stupid, and I didn't think about what I was doing to you." Natasha studied her. The apology seemed genuine, but it didn't matter. "Okay. Take care." She walked away without another word. Amber's apology didn't change anything. The damage was done, and Natasha had already moved past it. That night, lying in bed, Natasha realized something profound. She didn't need closure from Derek or Amber. She'd created her own closure by building a life she loved. That was more powerful than any apology they could offer. 4 months post-divorce, Natasha attended a networking event for her industry. She almost didn't go. She was tired after a long week and networking events could be exhausting. But something made her change into a professional dress and head to the downtown hotel where it was being held. The ballroom was packed with people holding drinks and making small talk. Natasha grabbed a glass of wine and started circulating, exchanging business cards and making polite conversation about market trends and client challenges. She was about to leave when someone tapped her shoulder. "Excuse me, but aren't you Natasha, right?" She turned to find a man about her age, maybe early 40s, with an easy smile and intelligent eyes. He looked vaguely familiar. "I am. And you are?" "Julian Foster. We met briefly at a conference last year. You gave a presentation on innovative client retention strategies." Natasha remembered. "Right. You asked about implementation timelines. I'm impressed you remember. That was a room of 200 people. I remember good questions." They fell into easy conversation. Julian ran his own marketing consultancy and was looking to expand. He had ideas that intrigued Natasha, ways to approach client relationships that challenged traditional models. "Have you eaten?" he asked after they'd been talking for an hour. "There's a great Vietnamese place around the corner." Natasha hesitated. Was this a date? Or just 2 professionals continuing a business conversation? She decided it didn't matter. "I'd like that." The restaurant was small and casual, nothing romantic about it. They ordered pho and spring rolls and continued their conversation about business, but it gradually shifted to more personal topics. "How do you balance work and life?" Julian asked. "I'm terrible at it. I work constantly. I used to be the same way. But lately I've been making an effort to do things just for me. Pottery classes, book clubs, running. Things that have nothing to do with work." "That sounds healthy. I should probably try something like that." "What do you do for fun?" He laughed. "Honestly, I don't remember the last time I did something just for fun. My ex-wife used to complain about that constantly." "You're divorced too?" 2 years now. It was messy. She wanted kids, I wanted to build my business. Neither of us would compromise, so we ended up resenting each other. Natasha nodded. I get that. My ex-husband resented my career. Then he moved his mistress into our house while I was on a business trip. Julian winced. That's awful. I'm sorry. Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me. Made me realize I'd been compromising myself for someone who didn't appreciate me. How long have you been divorced? 4 months. The actual divorce anyway. But I've been free longer than that. They talked until the restaurant started closing. Julian walked her to her car, hands in his pockets, maintaining a respectful distance. I enjoyed this, he said. Would you want to meet again? I have an idea for a business venture, and I think you'd be perfect to collaborate with. What kind of venture? Let me put together a proper presentation. How about coffee next week? Natasha considered it. Julian seemed genuine, professional, and interesting. And this was purely business. Sure. Email me some times that work for you. They exchanged information, and Natasha drove home thinking about the evening. It had been nice to have an intellectual conversation with someone who respected her opinions. Nothing romantic, she wasn't ready for that, but a potential professional connection that could lead to interesting opportunities. The following week, they met at a coffee shop near Natasha's office. Julian brought a tablet with a detailed presentation. His idea was to create a consultancy that specialized in helping mid-sized companies develop and execute growth strategies. He had the operational expertise. Natasha had the client relationship skills and industry connections. We'd be equal partners, he explained. 50-50 split on everything. I'm not looking for someone to work for me. I want a partner who challenges me and brings different strengths to the table. This would be a significant time commitment on top of my current job. It would, at least initially. But if it takes off the way I think it could, we'd both be able to go full-time within a year. Natasha looked at the projections he'd prepared. They were ambitious but not unrealistic. She asked hard questions about market positioning, competitive advantage, and client acquisition strategies. Julian had thought through everything. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Take your time. This is a big decision. Over the next week, Natasha ran the idea by trusted colleagues, her therapist, and Zara. Everyone had the same reaction. It was risky but potentially rewarding. The question is, Dr. Harrison said in their session, are you ready to take risks again? After what happened with Derek, would you say you're risk-averse now? I sold my house out from under my cheating husband. I'm not risk-averse. Dr. Harrison smiled. Good point. So what's holding you back? I guess, trusting someone else. What if Julian turns out to be unreliable? What if I invest time and energy and it falls apart? Those are valid concerns. But you can't live your whole life avoiding partnerships because Derek betrayed you. That gives him too much power over your future. She was right. Natasha knew she was right. She met Julian again and agreed to the partnership. They spent the next 2 months developing their business plan, filing paperwork, and making initial client contacts. They worked well together. Julian was detail-oriented and strategic, while Natasha was creative and people-focused. They challenged each other's ideas without ego, compromised when needed, and celebrated small wins together. It wasn't romantic. Natasha made that clear from the start and Julian respected it. But it was a partnership based on mutual respect and shared vision, which felt revolutionary after years with Derek. Their consultancy landed its first client, a manufacturing company looking to expand into new markets. The project was challenging, requiring research, strategy development, and implementation support. Natasha and Julian worked long hours, often meeting at coffee shops on weekends to strategize. You're really good at this, Julian said one Saturday after a particularly productive session. Reading people, understanding what they need even when they can't articulate it. Thanks. I've had a lot of practice managing difficult personalities. Your ex-husband? Among others. He studied her for a moment. Can I ask you something personal? Depends what it is. Why aren't you dating? You're smart, successful, attractive. I'm surprised you're not fighting off interested parties. Natasha smiled. Who says I'm not? I'm just not interested in dating right now. I'm enjoying my own company. Fair enough. For what it's worth, whoever you do eventually choose will be lucky to have you. It was a sweet comment, not creepy or presumptuous. Just genuine. Natasha appreciated that about Julian. He said what he meant without games or hidden agendas. 5 months after the divorce, Natasha's life had dimensions she'd never imagined. She had her day job, her consultancy with Julian, her pottery class, where she'd finally made a bowl that didn't wobble, her book club and her running routine. She had friends, hobbies, and goals. She had a life that was full and rich and entirely her own. And for the first time since finding Amber's clothes in her guest room, Natasha felt truly happy. 6 months after selling the house, Natasha barely recognized her own life. She woke up each morning in her apartment with sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked the city, and she felt grateful. Grateful for her freedom, grateful for her strength, grateful for the second chance she'd given herself. The consultancy with Julian was thriving. They'd landed 3 major clients and were in talks with 2 more. The work was demanding but fulfilling in a way her corporate job never had been. They were building something together, creating value, helping companies grow. It felt meaningful. "We should celebrate," Julian said after closing their biggest client yet. "Dinner? Drinks? Your choice. Let's do dinner. Somewhere nice." They went to an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place Derek would have complained was too expensive or too fancy. Julian insisted on paying since the client was his connection, and Natasha didn't fight him on it. Over wine and excellent food, they talked about their plans for the consultancy. They'd need to hire an assistant soon. Maybe start looking at office space instead of meeting in coffee shops. They were approaching the point where this could become their full-time careers. "I'm thinking of giving notice at my company," Natasha said. "I got the VP position, but honestly, my heart isn't in it anymore. I'm excited about what we're building." "Are you sure? That's a big step." "I'm sure. What about you?" "I've been running my consultancy for years. This is just an expansion for me. But for you it's a leap." "I'm ready for the leap." Julian raised his glass. "To leaps of faith. To new beginnings." They clinked glasses and Natasha felt a flutter of excitement. This was scary but exhilarating. She was choosing herself, her dreams, her future. No one was holding her back. The next week she gave her notice. Her boss tried to convince her to stay, offering more money and more flexibility, but Natasha's mind was made up. She'd been at the company for 8 years. It was time for something new. Her last day was bittersweet. Her colleagues threw her a small party, and several people told her they admired her courage. "I wish I could take a risk like that," Monica said. "You're inspiring." Natasha hadn't thought of herself as inspiring, but maybe she was. Maybe walking away from security to build something new was the kind of thing that inspired others to examine their own lives. She and Julian rented a small office space in a renovated building downtown. It was just 2 rooms and a tiny kitchen, but it was theirs. They spent a weekend setting it up. Desks, chairs, whiteboards, a coffee maker that Julian insisted was essential. "This is real now," Natasha said, looking around their new space. "We're really doing this." Having second thoughts? Not even a little. Their business grew steadily. Word of mouth brought them new clients. Natasha's network from her corporate days proved invaluable. Within 3 months of going full-time, they were profitable. Within 6 months, they were hiring their first employee, a young woman named Brianna who was smart, hungry, and reminded Natasha of herself at that age. "Did you ever imagine your life would look like this?" Julian asked one day as they reviewed quarterly projections. "Never. A year ago, I was married, living in my grandmother's house, and thinking that was my forever. Now I'm divorced, running my own business, and actually happy." "You weren't happy before?" "I thought I was. But I was performing happiness for Derek. Being who he wanted me to be. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I stopped." "Well, I'm glad you did. I couldn't do this without you." It was true. They made a good team. Julian handled operations and strategy while Natasha managed client relationships and business development. They complemented each other's strengths and covered each other's weaknesses. 7 months after the divorce, Natasha ran into Derek again. This time it was at a professional conference. Apparently, his company was exhibiting there. He looked better than he had the last time she'd seen him. Clean-shaven, well-dressed, more put together. "Natasha," he said, approaching her during a break between sessions. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About us. About everything. I've been in therapy working on myself. I realize now how badly I screwed up." "Good for you. But that doesn't concern me anymore. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. What I did was unforgivable." "You're right. It was. Is there any chance, any at all, that we could try again? Start over?" Natasha looked at him with something like pity. "No, Derek. There's no chance. I've moved on. I have a whole new life. And honestly, you're not part of it. But we had something special. We had something unhealthy. I just didn't see it at the time. But I see it now, and I'm never going back to that. So that's it? All those years together mean nothing? They mean I learned what I don't want. Thank you for that lesson. She walked away, and this time she felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering attachment. Derek was truly in her past. That evening, she met Zara for dinner and told her about the encounter. How did you feel? Zara asked. Nothing. Like I was talking to a stranger. That's huge. You're really over him. I am. Completely. 8 months post-divorce, Natasha's transformation was complete. She'd gone from a woman who'd lost everything to a woman who'd built everything. She had a successful business, financial security, a support network of friends, and most importantly, she had herself back. Her pottery instructor commented on her progress. You've really grown as an artist. Your work has become more confident. I've become more confident, Natasha replied. She'd also started running half marathons. The girl who'd never been athletic was now training for a full marathon. She joined a running club and made new friends who knew nothing about Derek or the divorce. They just knew her as Natasha, the woman who showed up every Saturday morning ready to push herself. One Saturday after a long run, Julian texted her, "Free for lunch? Want to discuss expansion plans." They met at a casual cafe near her apartment. Julian had ideas about opening a second office, maybe in another city. They could handle it remotely, but it would require travel and additional staff. What do you think? He asked. I think we should do it. We've proven the model works. Why not scale? I was hoping you'd say that. As they discussed logistics and timelines, Natasha realized something. She trusted Julian. Completely. They'd been working together for 8 months and he'd never let her down. He was reliable, honest, and respectful. He kept his word and valued her input. This was what a real partnership looked like. Equal, respectful, collaborative. Julian, she said suddenly. Thank you. For what? For being a good partner. For showing me what healthy collaboration looks like. He smiled. Right back at you. That night, Natasha stood on her balcony looking out at the city lights. Her grandmother's house was somewhere out there, being lived in by people who appreciated it. Derek was out there somewhere too, hopefully learning and growing and becoming a better person. But none of that mattered to her anymore. She'd created a life she loved, surrounded herself with people who valued her, and built a future on her own terms. The transformation was complete. She wasn't the woman Derek had betrayed. She was someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely happier. 1 year after selling her grandmother's house, Natasha stood in her office overlooking the city and reflected on how far she'd come. The consultancy had expanded to 2 cities, they'd hired 5 employees, and revenue had exceeded even their most optimistic projections. She'd run her first full marathon. She'd exhibited her pottery in a local art show. She'd traveled to 3 countries. She'd built a life so rich and full that sometimes she had to stop and marvel at it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Dinner tonight to celebrate our 1-year anniversary as partners? She smiled and texted back, sounds perfect. They met at the same upscale restaurant where they'd celebrated their first big client. It had become their tradition. Whenever something significant happened, they returned to that restaurant. To an incredible year, Julian said, raising his glass. To partnership. They toasted and ordered their favorite dishes. Over dinner, they reviewed the year's accomplishments and discussed plans for the future. They wanted to expand to a 3rd city. Maybe start offering workshops and training programs. The possibilities felt endless. Can I ask you something? Julian said as they finished their meal. Of course. How do you feel about the past year? Not just business-wise, but personally? Natasha considered the question. I feel free. Powerful. Like I'm finally living my actual life instead of some version of it designed to please someone else. That's beautiful. What about you? Any regrets about partnering with a recently divorced woman who was probably a mess when we met? You weren't a mess. You were someone rebuilding herself. And no, not a single regret. You've made me a better business person and a better person in general. How so? You taught me that it's possible to work hard and still have a life. That success doesn't require sacrificing everything else. You have hobbies, friends, interests outside of work. I've started trying to do the same. And? I joined a cycling club. I'm reading fiction again for the first time in years. I even went on a date. Natasha's eyebrows rose. You didn't tell me that. It just happened. A woman I met at the cycling club. We've gone out twice. And I like her. It's early, but there's potential. I'm happy for you. What about you? Any interest in dating? Natasha thought about it. Over the past year, she'd had several opportunities. Men had asked her out. She'd been set up on blind dates by well-meaning friends. But she'd declined them all. Not because she was afraid or still hurt, but because she genuinely enjoyed her own company. Maybe eventually, she said. But I'm not actively looking. I'm happy as I am. That's the healthiest thing I've ever heard. As they left the restaurant, Julian walked her to her car like he always did. But this time he hesitated before saying goodbye. Natasha, I want to tell you something. And I hope it doesn't make things weird between us. Okay. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. I have for months now. But I haven't said anything because I know you weren't ready and because I didn't want to mess up our partnership. Natasha's heart skipped. She hadn't expected this. Julian. Wait, let me finish. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not pressuring you. I just wanted you to know. And if you don't feel the same way, we'll never mention it again and everything stays exactly as it is. She looked at him, really looked at him. Julian was kind, intelligent, respectful. He'd been a rock over the past year, a true partner in every sense. She cared about him deeply. But was she ready for more than friendship? I don't know what I feel, she said honestly. I care about you. A lot. But I don't know if I'm ready for a relationship. That's okay. Take your time. Figure it out. I'm not going anywhere. And if I decide I just want to be business partners and friends, then that's what we'll be. I'd rather have you in my life as a friend than not at all. Natasha drove home thinking about Julian's confession. It had surprised her, but it hadn't upset her. If anything, she felt flattered and touched. He'd been brave enough to be honest without being pushy. Over the next few weeks, she paid more attention to her feelings around Julian. Did her heart race when she saw him? Did she think about him when he wasn't around? Did she want more than what they had? The answer, she realized, was complicated. She did have feelings for him. But she also valued what they'd built, the partnership, the friendship, the trust. Was it worth risking that for romance? She talked to Dr. Harrison about it. What are you afraid of? Her therapist asked. Getting hurt again. Losing what we have. Making the wrong choice. Those are all valid fears. But here's a question. What if Julian is the right choice? How can I know? You can't. That's the nature of relationships. They're a leap of faith. But consider this. You and Julian have already built a successful partnership based on trust and mutual respect. That's a better foundation than most romantic relationships start with. She was right. Natasha and Julian had proven they could work through challenges, communicate effectively, and respect each other's boundaries. They built something real. 1 month after Julian's confession, Natasha invited him to dinner at her apartment. She cooked, something simple but good, and they ate on her balcony as the sun set over the city. So, Julian said, "You've been thinking." "I have. And I think I'd like to try dating. See where it goes." His face lit up. "Really? Really? But slowly. I'm not ready to rush into anything. Slow is good. I can do slow." They started dating, though it barely looked different from their friendship at first. They still met for coffee to discuss business. They still worked together every day. But now, occasionally they held hands. Or kissed goodbye. Small gestures that felt monumental to Natasha. Julian was patient with her, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. She needed space, he gave it. She wanted to talk, he listened. He was everything Derek hadn't been, considerate, respectful, secure in himself. "I'm scared," she admitted one night as they walked along the river. "What if this doesn't work? What if we ruin our partnership? Then we'll handle it like adults. The same way we handle everything else. With communication and respect." You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. We care about each other. We treat each other well. We communicate. That's the foundation. 2 months into dating, Natasha realized something profound. She was falling in love. Real love, not the performance she'd had with Derek. This was quieter, deeper, more secure. Julian didn't complete her. She was already complete on her own. But he enhanced her life, added to it, made it richer. One evening, they were working late at the office when Julian turned to her suddenly. "Move in with me." Natasha's eyes widened. "What?" "I know it's fast, but we practically live together anyway. You're at my place or I'm at yours most nights. And I love waking up next to you. So move in with me. Or I'll move in with you. Or we can find a new place together. I don't care which, as long as we're together." Natasha's first instinct was to say no. It was too fast. She'd only been divorced for a year and a half. She needed her own space. But then she thought about Julian's place, how comfortable she felt there, how it had started to feel like home. And she thought about Derek, how she'd let his betrayal make her afraid of taking chances. Yes, she said. Let's find a new place together. They found an apartment with space for both of them. His cycling gear, her pottery supplies, a home office they could share. Moving in together felt different than it had with Derek. This time, Natasha didn't feel like she was compromising herself. She was choosing to share her life with someone who valued her. On moving day, Zara helped them unpack. I can't believe how much your life has changed, she said. A year and a half ago you were selling your house out from under Derek. Now you're moving in with Julian. I know. It feels surreal. Are you happy? Natasha looked around the apartment. Boxes everywhere, furniture in wrong places, chaos and possibility. I really am. That evening, after Zara left and most of the boxes were unpacked, Natasha and Julian sat on their new couch and looked out at the city. Thank you, Julian said. For what? For taking a chance on me. On us. I know it wasn't easy for you. You made it easy. You were patient and kind and never pressured me. That's what you deserve. Always. Natasha leaned against him, feeling content in a way she'd never experienced before. This was her life now, a successful business she co-owned, a relationship built on respect and trust, friends who supported her, hobbies that fulfilled her, and most importantly, a sense of self that no one could take away. She thought about the woman she'd been a year and a half ago, standing in that guest bedroom and discovering her husband's betrayal. That woman had been devastated. But that woman had also been strong enough to walk away, smart enough to protect herself, and brave enough to rebuild. What are you thinking about? Julian asked. How far I've come. How selling that house was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't just about the house. It was about refusing to accept disrespect. About valuing myself enough to walk away. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just someone who learned to stand up for herself. That's what makes you remarkable. Natasha smiled. She didn't need Julian's validation. She'd learned to validate herself. But it was nice to be seen and appreciated by someone who truly understood her worth. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost didn't look, but curiosity won. It was Derek. I heard you started a business. Congratulations. I also heard you're with someone new. I hope he treats you better than I did. You deserve happiness. Natasha read it twice, then showed it to Julian. How do you feel? He asked. Nothing. He's part of my past. A chapter that's closed. Are you going to respond? No. There's nothing to say. She blocked the number and set her phone down. Derek didn't get to be part of her new beginning. He'd had his chance and he'd blown it. Now she was building something beautiful with someone who valued her. That night, lying in bed in their new apartment, Natasha felt profoundly grateful. Grateful for the pain that had taught her strength. Grateful for the loss that had led to growth. Grateful for the courage to start over. Her journey from betrayal to freedom had been difficult, but it had also been transformative. She wasn't the same woman who discovered her husband's mistress living in her home. She was stronger, wiser, more confident. She'd learned to value herself, to set boundaries, to refuse anything less than what she deserved. And as she drifted off to sleep next to Julian, she knew with absolute certainty, she'd made the right choice. All of them. Selling the house. Leaving Derek. Starting the business. Taking a chance on love again. This was her happy ending, not because of a man but because of herself. Because she'd refused to stay in a situation that diminished her. Because she'd built a life she loved, one choice at a time. And that, Natasha thought, was the best revenge of all.